The Bifrost was never meant to shatter. Thor Odinson, Prince of Asgard, felt the Rainbow Bridge collapse beneath him. Not the controlled descent of Heimdall's guidance, but a catastrophic rupture that tore through dimensions like lightning through storm clouds. One moment he stood in the golden halls of his father's palace, Mjolnir heavy in his grip. The next, reality fractured into impossible geometries, colors that had no names, and a pull that even his godly strength could not resist. He crashed through a ring of spinning symbols surrounded by light. The impact should have shattered stone. Instead, Thor rolled across smooth metal flooring, his cape billowing as electrical energy crackled across his armor. He rose to one knee, hammer raised, and found himself in a gray chamber filled with armed mortals. Their weapons, primitive projectile throwers, tracked his every movement. Behind him, a massive circular structure pulsed with fading blue energy, strange symbols etched around its circumference. "Stand down!" A warrior woman's voice cut through the chaos. She wore the garb of a Midgardian soldier, but held herself with a commander's authority. "Whoever you are, you just came through an active Stargate without an IDC. That makes you hostile until proven otherwise." Thor lowered Mjolnir slightly, though he kept his guard raised. "I am Thor of Asgard, son of Odin. I mean no harm to—" He paused, studying the technology surrounding him. This was not Midgard as he knew it. The architecture spoke of advancement beyond Earth's current age, yet these warriors wore the uniforms of human soldiers. Where have I traveled? That's what we'd like to know. A man in green military dress stepped forward, flanked by more armed guards. His insignia marked him as a leader of significant rank. "I'm General George Hammond, commander of Stargate Command. You just violated restricted military airspace through a device connected to countless worlds across the galaxy." His eyes narrowed at Mjolnir. "And you're carrying what appears to be a very advanced weapon." Thor glanced at his hammer, then back at the general. "This is Mjolnir, forged in the heart of a dying star. It is no mere weapon, but a—" "Sir?" A woman in blue uniform rushed in, clutching some form of scanning device. Her eyes were wide with impossible readings. "The energy signature from his arrival. It doesn't match any Goa'uld technology we've encountered. And his bio readings are off the charts. Bone density alone suggests he could bench press a tank." The general's expression hardened. "Take him to holding, full security protocol." Lightning danced across Thor's shoulders, a warning, not a threat. "I am a guest in your realm, General Hammond. In Asgard, we do not greet visitors with imprisonment. In Colorado, we don't let armed unknowns wander around our most classified facility." He gestured to his soldiers, "peacefully if possible." Thor studied the mortals surrounding him. They were brave, these warriors, facing an unknown threat without hesitation. He respected that. And he was, truthfully, as lost as they were suspicious. He set Mjolnir down with a thunderous clang that made several soldiers flinch, then raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "Very well, General. I shall answer your questions, but know this: I have faced the darkness between worlds and emerged victorious. Whatever brought me to this place, I suspect it was no accident." If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want them to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. As soldiers moved to escort him away, Thor caught sight of symbols on the walls, star charts, tactical displays, and images of pyramid ships that stirred something ancient in his memory. These mortals had ventured far beyond their world. and if the technology surrounding him was any indication, they had made powerful enemies in doing so.
The interrogation room was designed for intimidation. Bare walls, a single metal table, harsh lighting. Thor sat calmly, his presence somehow making the Spartan space feel inadequate rather than confining. Through one-way glass, General Hammond watched alongside his flagship team, Colonel Jack O'Neill, Captain Samantha Carter, and the alien warrior Teal'c. "He's been sitting there for 20 minutes without moving," O'Neill observed, arms crossed. "Not fidgeting, not demanding a lawyer, just waiting. Like he has all the time in the world," Carter added, studying her tablet. "General, I've analyzed the energy readings from his arrival. Whatever brought him through that gate, it wasn't a normal wormhole. The power spike was astronomical, comparable to a Stetter event." Teal'c stepped closer to the glass, his expression unreadable. "I have served the Goa'uld for many years. I have seen system lords command armies and witnessed their technology perform seeming miracles, but I have never encountered one who radiates power as this man does." He turned to Hammond. "He claims to be Thor of Asgard. The Goa'uld have long feared the Asgard as a superior race, if this is one of them." "He doesn't look like any Asgard we've met," O'Neill interrupted. "No gray skin, no big eyes, definitely more Viking-ish." Hammond made his decision. "Colonel, take your team in. Find out what he knows about the Stargate system, and more importantly, what he wants." The SG-1 team entered the room with practiced efficiency. O'Neill took the lead, dropping into the chair across from Thor with deliberate casualness. "So, Thor. That's an interesting name." "It is my name, as it was my father's fathers before him, and his father before that. We are the line of Odin, protectors of the 9 realms." Carter pulled out a photograph, an image of a gray alien with large black eyes. "We know some people who call themselves the Asgard. They've been very helpful allies to Earth, but you don't exactly match their profile." Thor studied the image, and for the first time, genuine surprise crossed his features. He leaned forward, speaking with quiet intensity. "These beings, they claim to be Asgard? The Asgard are an advanced race. They have protected many worlds from the Goa'uld. They have shared their technology and wisdom with Earth. And they use our names?" Thor's voice carried an edge now. "Thor, Heimdall, Loki, these are titles from my realm, my people. How have creatures such as these come to bear them?" O'Neill exchanged glances with his team. "Okay, that's not the reaction I was expecting. You're telling me you've never heard of the Asgard? The little gray guys who zip around in their ships saving lesser races from snake-headed false gods?" "I know nothing of gray beings or snake gods," Thor said, rising to his feet. Even without threatening gestures, his presence filled the room. "But I know deception when I encounter it. These Asgard have taken the identity of my people. Why?" Carter's scientific mind raced ahead. "Wait, you're saying you're the real Thor, as in the actual Norse god from Earth mythology?" "I am no myth, warrior maiden. I am as real as the hammer that bears my power, and I would know why beings I have never met claim kinship with Asgard, while my people remain in our own realm." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Finally, O'Neill broke the tension with his characteristic irreverence. "Well, this is either the best cover story I've ever heard, or we just walked into a very complicated family dispute."
The briefing room hummed with tension as Daniel Jackson spread ancient texts across the conference table. The archaeologist's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the academic excitement of a lifetime discovery sitting 20 feet away in a holding cell. "The mythology is consistent across multiple Earth cultures," Daniel explained, pointing to Norse inscriptions. "Thor, Odin, Asgard, these stories date back thousands of years. But here's what's fascinating. The Asgard we know, our allies, they chose these names deliberately. They adopted Norse mythology as a, what do they call it, Sam?" "A cultural template," Carter supplied. "The Asgard told us they studied Earth cultures and selected Norse mythology as a way to interact with less advanced civilizations. They thought it would make communication easier." "They stole our identities," Thor's voice echoed from the doorway. Two armed guards flanked him, though their weapons seemed almost comical against his frame. Hammond had authorized his presence at the briefing, a calculated risk. "They wear the names of my people like borrowed cloaks." "With respect," Teal'c interjected, "the Asgard are honorable allies. They have saved Earth multiple times from Goa'uld attack. They would not steal without purpose." Thor moved to the table, studying the texts with recognition clear in his eyes. "These runes, I learned them as a child in Asgard's libraries. This is the script of my people, preserved here on Midgard." "You called this mythology, but these are histories, battles fought, wisdom earned, oaths sworn by my ancestors." "Midgard?" O'Neill asked. "You mean Earth?" "Yes, the realm of mortals, one of the 9 realms connected by Yggdrasil, the world tree." He saw their confused expressions. "You do not know the tree, the cosmic pathways that link all realms?" Daniel leaned forward eagerly. "The world tree is a metaphor in Norse mythology, a symbolic representation of—" "It is no metaphor, scholar. It is as real as your Stargate, though infinitely ancient." Thor's expression shifted to troubled realization. "But if I am here, in a version of Midgard I do not recognize, traveling through devices I have never encountered." He gripped the table edge. "Then the Bifrost's collapse sent me not merely across space, but across the branches of reality itself." The room absorbed this in stunned silence. Carter recovered first, her tactical mind grasping the implications. "You're suggesting parallel dimensions? That you're from a different version of Earth, or connected to a different Earth?" "I know only that this is not the Midgard I have visited. Your technology has advanced far beyond what existed in my time. And these Goa'uld you mention, false gods who enslave worlds, they sound like foes worthy of Asgardian attention, yet I have never heard of them." "Oh, you'd remember them," O'Neill muttered. "Glowing eyes, terrible fashion sense, god complexes that make dictators look humble. They've been enslaving humans across the galaxy for thousands of years, posing as gods from Earth mythology. Ra, Apophis, Hathor." Thor's fist slammed down, cracking the table. Lightning crackled across his knuckles. "They claim divinity through deception. They enslave your people using the very lies that have poisoned countless realms." Every weapon in the room trained on him instantly. Thor didn't notice or didn't care. "In every realm I have protected, I have fought such corruption. Beings who twist worship into chains, who demand surrender in exchange for false protection. The 9 realms have bled to stop such darkness." His eyes met Hammond's. "And you tell me an entire galaxy suffers under their rule?" Hammond raised a hand, and his soldiers lowered their weapons slightly. "Stand down. I don't think he's threatening us." To Thor, "The Goa'uld are our enemy. They've enslaved billions across thousands of worlds. We fight them, but we're outgunned and outmatched." "Then you fight with honor against impossible odds. That is a battle I understand well."
The alert klaxons shattered the briefing room's intensity. Red lights pulsed as a technician's voice crackled through the intercom. "Incoming wormhole! We're receiving an Asgard IDC!" Hammond was already moving. "Battle stations, SG-1 with me. Thor?" He hesitated, then made a command decision. "You too. Let's see what happens when you meet your namesakes." The gate room filled with the familiar whoosh of the event horizon stabilizing. Thor stood beside SG-1, his eyes fixed on the shimmering portal. The artificial horizon looked nothing like the Bifrost's rainbow light, yet it served the same purpose, a bridge between worlds. A column of white light materialized before the gate.
When it faded, a small gray figure stood in its place. Large black eyes dominated a bulbous head atop a thin, childlike body. The being wore simple robes and regarded the assembled humans with an expression that might have been concerned. "Greetings, General Hammond," the Asgard spoke, in a voice both ancient and somehow childlike. "I am Thor, Supreme Commander of the Asgard fleet. We detected an unusual energy signature emanating from your facility and—" The gray alien froze mid-sentence as his gaze locked onto the towering blonde warrior standing among the humans. For a long moment, neither Thor moved. "You," the Asgard prince said quietly, dangerously, "you wear my name." The alien Thor's large eyes somehow widened further. "This is unprecedented. General Hammond, who is this being? His physiological readings are extraordinary, and his energy signature matches nothing in our database." "Funny story," O'Neill interjected. "Turns out the real Thor just dropped by for a visit, and he's got some questions about your choice of nom de guerre." The Asgard Supreme Commander approached slowly, studying the prince with scientific fascination. "Your genetic structure suggests Asgardian origin, yet you are clearly not of our race. Your cellular density, your neural pathways—" He paused. "You are from the dimension the ancients referenced in their earliest writings, the Nine Realms cosmology." "The ancients?" Daniel stepped forward. "You mean the race that built the Stargates?" "Indeed, Dr. Jackson. The ancients explored many dimensions before ascending. They documented encounters with beings who claimed dominion over multiple interconnected realms." The small gray alien looked up at Thor with something approaching awe. "We chose your names as tribute, not theft. The legends of Asgard, your Asgard, inspired our race when we needed heroes to emulate." Thor's anger faltered, replaced by confusion. "You honor us by claiming our identity? We honor you by protecting the innocent as you once did. Our race faces extinction. Our cloning program has degraded our genetic viability. We are a dying people trying to preserve the ideals we found in your mythology: courage, honor, protection of the weak." His voice carried unexpected weight despite its high pitch. "When we learned of humanity's struggle against the Goa'uld, we saw ourselves in them, small, outmatched, but defiant, so we took names from the protectors we wished to be." The Asgardian prince stood silent, processing this. Around him, SG-1 watched the encounter with fascination. "The Goa'uld," Thor finally said, "these parasites who claim godhood, they are the antithesis of everything Asgard represents, everything any protector should stand for." "Yes," the small gray alien agreed, "which is why we fight them. Though we know we cannot win, we can only delay them, protect what worlds we can, and hope that someday—" "You will not fight alone," Thor interrupted. "If my arrival here was destiny or accident, I care not. I have found a worthy cause." He turned to Hammond. "General, your people face gods who are no gods at all. In my realm, I am called the God of Thunder. Let me show these false deities what true divine wrath looks like." Lightning danced across Thor's arms, reflecting in dozens of startled eyes. "One warrior? Perhaps, but I am Thor Odinson, and I do not fight to turn tides. I fight to shatter them entirely."
The Goa'uld system lord Cronis reclined on his throne aboard the massive Hatak mothership, golden armor gleaming in the dim light. Before him, a Jaffa scout knelt, trembling despite his warrior training. "Speak," Cronis commanded, his voice carrying the dual resonance of host and symbiote. "My lord, the Tauri have acquired a new weapon. Our spies report a being of immense power arrived through their Stargate. He withstood staff weapon fire without injury and commands lightning itself." The Jaffa's voice wavered. The Asgard have taken interest in him. They call him Thor, Cronis finished, rising from his throne. How deliciously ironic. He descended the steps toward a viewing screen that displayed grainy surveillance footage from a network of Jaffa spies embedded across dozens of worlds. The image showed a tall, powerful warrior deflecting energy blasts with a hammer that crackled with electrical force. His first prime, a scarred veteran named Tarvek, approached cautiously. "My lord, if this is truly an Asgard weapon—" "It is not Asgard technology," Cronis interrupted, studying the footage with predatory interest. "The Protected Planets Treaty prevents the Asgard from directly interfering in our affairs. This Thor, he is something else entirely." His eyes glowed with parasitic light, "something we can use." The System Lord had not maintained power for 5,000 years by ignoring opportunities. The Tauri had become increasingly troublesome, destroying motherships, killing System Lords, inspiring rebellion among the Jaffa. Ra, Apophis, Hathor, all had underestimated these primitives. Cronis would not make that mistake. "Increase surveillance on Stargate Command," he ordered. "I want to know everything about this warrior, his strengths, his weaknesses, his desires." A cruel smile crossed his borrowed face. "Every god has their price, even false ones pretending to divinity. And if he proves hostile to our interests, then we eliminate him before he becomes a larger problem." Cronis gestured to the tactical display, showing his fleet positions. "But first, we test him. Send word to our agents on P3888. The Tauri have been investigating that world's ruins. Let us see how their new champion handles a proper welcome." Tarvek bowed. "It shall be done, my lord." Alone in his throne room, Cronis contemplated the shifting board of galactic power. The System Lords had grown complacent, fighting among themselves, while the Tauri grew bolder and the Asgard interfered from the shadows. But opportunity often wore the face of crisis. This Thor, whether Asgard creation, ancient technology, or something beyond known space, represented a variable that could upset the entire balance. In the hands of the Goa'uld, such power could crush the rebellion brewing among the Jaffa, cow the System Lords into submission, and finally break the Asgard's interference. But first, he needed to understand what he was dealing with. Cronis activated his communication device, sending encrypted messages across the galaxy to his network of spies, underlords, and hidden operatives. Information flowed both ways through the Stargate network, and the Goa'uld had thousands of years in practice in gathering intelligence. Within hours, reports began arriving. The warrior called Thor had demonstrated strength exceeding any Jaffa warrior. His weapon, this Mjolnir, could not be lifted by anyone who tried, suggesting technology far beyond current understanding. Most intriguing, he showed no signs of symbiote infestation, yet possessed abilities that rivaled the Goa'uld's own genetically inherited powers. A god without a symbiote? Impossible, yet the evidence suggests otherwise. The System Lord's mind worked through possibilities. If this being truly commanded power without Goa'uld enhancement, the implications were staggering. It meant power could exist independent of the symbiotes, a revelation that would undermine the very foundation of Goa'uld supremacy. Such knowledge could not be allowed to spread. This Thor would serve the Goa'uld, or he would die. There was no third option. Cronis activated the viewing screen once more, watching the warrior laugh alongside the Tauri in their primitive facility. The being showed no fear, no deference, no recognition of his place in the cosmic order. That would change. Gods did not share the heavens with pretenders. "Prepare my personal guard," Cronis commanded to the empty room, knowing his servants monitored his every word. "And ready the sarcophagus chamber. We may need to make this Thor understand the true meaning of immortality." The pieces were moving. Soon the board would reveal whether this new player was pawn, knight, or something the game had never seen before.
The MALP probe transmitted grainy images from P3X888, a desert world with ruins that predated the Goa'uld Empire. Daniel Jackson had been lobbying for this mission for weeks, convinced the ancient structures held clues to pre-Stargate civilizations. Now SG-1 stood in the gate room alongside an unexpected addition to their roster. Thor adjusted the borrowed combat vest over his Asgardian armor. The tactical gear looked absurd against his cape and chainmail, but Hammond had insisted on some concession to standard operating procedure. Mjolnir hung comfortably at his side, secured by a leather loop. "First time off-world?" O'Neill asked, checking his P90 with practiced efficiency. "I have traveled the 9 realms since before your great-grandfathers were born, Colonel," Thor replied with amusement. "Though I confess, stepping through a puddle of energy is less majestic than the Bifrost's Rainbow Bridge." "Yeah, well, our budget doesn't cover rainbow effects," O'Neill gestured to the active Stargate. "Ladies first, Carter." The team moved through the event horizon in sequence. Thor experienced a moment of bizarre displacement, not unlike the Bifrost, but colder, more mechanical. He emerged on a world of red sand and harsh sunlight, 2 suns burning in an amber sky. "Wow," Daniel breathed, immediately fixated on the nearby ruins. Massive stone structures jutted from the desert, covered in weathered glyphs. These architectural elements are definitely pre-dynastic, possibly even pre-Goa'uld. Teal'c scanned the horizon, staff weapon ready. "We should establish a perimeter. This world is listed as uninhabited, but..." The sand exploded around them. Jaffa warriors erupted from concealed positions, staff weapons blazing. Energy bolts tore through the air as SG-1 dove for cover behind the ancient ruins. Thor stood unmoved in the center of the kill zone, staff blasts splashing harmlessly against his Asgardian armor. "Ambush!" Carter shouted unnecessarily, returning fire with her P90. A Jaffa commander stepped forward, his ornate armor marking him as first prime. "Surrender the warrior called Thor, and you may leave through the Chappa Eye unharmed. Refuse, and you die in this desert." "You know," O'Neill called from behind a stone pillar, "we really should have seen this coming." Thor hefted Mjolnir, electricity crackling along its surface. "How many enemies do you count, Colonel?" 30, maybe 40? Heavy weapons. At least 2 staff cannons positioned on those dunes. "Good." Thor's smile was wolfish. "I was hoping for a proper challenge." He launched himself forward with impossible speed. The first Jaffa barely had time to register movement before Mjolnir caught him in the chest, sending him flying backward through 2 of his comrades. Thor spun, his hammer a blur of deadly precision. Staff weapon fire intensified, concentrated volleys that would have cut down a dozen men. Lightning answered. Thor raised Mjolnir skyward, and the amber sky split with thunderous fury. Bolts of pure electrical energy lanced down, striking staff weapons and turning sand to glass. Jaffa warriors scattered, their disciplined formation breaking under the assault of a force they couldn't comprehend. "Is he always like this?" Daniel shouted over the chaos. "Pretty much," O'Neill replied, taking carefully aimed shots at targets Thor's lightning had stunned. The first prime rallied his warriors, bringing the staff cannons to bear. The heavy weapons swiveled toward Thor, charging with deadly intent. Energy beams thick as a man's torso erupted from the emplacements. Thor brought Mjolnir around in a devastating arc. The hammer met the energy beams head-on, and for a frozen moment, unstoppable force met immovable object. Then Thor's divine strength tipped the balance. He deflected the beams skyward, carving molten tracks through the clouds. "Impossible," the first prime gasped.
"Your gods have lied to you, warrior," he called out, advancing through the carnage. "They are not divine. They are parasites wearing stolen crowns." He pointed Mjolnir at the scattered Jaffa. "But know this, I am Thor Odinson, son of Odin, and I have fought real gods across 9 realms. Your false masters should fear what I bring." The remaining Jaffa looked to their commander, uncertainty clear even through their helmets. The first Prime's hand moved to his communication device. "No," Teal'c's voice rang out. The former First Prime emerged from cover, staff weapon trained on his counterpart. "You are Sholva, a traitor to your god and your brothers." "I am free," Teal'c corrected, "and so could you be." Thor watched this exchange with interest, lowering Mjolnir slightly. Around them, the desert battlefield had gone eerily quiet, staff weapons pointed but not firing. "Your choice, warriors," he said into the silence. "Serve masters who hide behind lies, or stand as free men. I have seen too many slaves across too many realms. I grow weary of breaking chains."
The Jaffa didn't lower their weapons. They didn't have to. The communications device on Tarvik's wrist lit up with incoming transmission, and every warrior present knew what would follow. The System Lord's voice carried across the desert through hidden speakers, resonant with divine authority. "Thor of Asgard," Cronis's voice echoed. "I am Cronis, Lord of Time, Master of the Heavens. Your display has been entertaining." A ring platform materialized 50 meters from their position. Golden light coalesced into an ornate transport platform, and Cronis descended with theatrical precision. He wore ceremonial armor that would have looked ridiculous on a lesser being, but the System Lord carried it with 5,000 years of practiced divinity. His eyes glowed with parasitic power. Behind him materialized a dozen more Jaffa, personal guard in elite armor, weapons tracking every member of SG-1. This was no mere ambush, this was a demonstration. "Stand down," O'Neill ordered his team quietly. They were outgunned and surrounded. This would end in negotiation or bloodshed, and Jack preferred to keep his options open. Thor, however, stepped forward. Lightning played across his shoulders, an unconscious manifestation of his rising anger. "You claim lordship over time itself?" Bold words for a creature who hides inside stolen flesh. Cronis's smile never wavered. "Ah, you know what we are. The Tauri have been educating you." He spread his arms in a gesture of false magnanimity. "Good. Then you understand the power we wield. The Goa'uld have ruled this galaxy for millennia. We are gods in all ways that matter." "You are parasites playing dress-up," Thor shot back. "I have met gods. I have fought beside them, argued with them, celebrated victory and mourned defeat with beings of true divine power. You disgrace the very concept." The System Lord's expression darkened, his eyes flaring brighter. "Careful, warrior. I offer you a choice few receive. Join me. With your power and my resources, we could reshape the galaxy. The other System Lords would kneel or burn. The Asgard would retreat. Even the Ancients' technology would fall before our combined might." "He's trying to recruit you," Carter whispered urgently. "Thor, don't..." Thor declared, his voice carrying across the desert like thunder itself. "I serve no tyrant, not in Asgard, not in Midgard, and certainly not in whatever corrupted corner of reality you call home." Cronis's facade of civility shattered. "Then you are a fool. Tarvik, demonstrate our supremacy."
The first prime activated his wrist device, and the sky above them rippled. Reality itself seemed to tear as a massive haytack mothership decloaked directly overhead, blotting out the twin suns. The pyramid-shaped vessel was kilometers across, bristling with weapons that could glass entire continents. "One ship," Cronis said softly. "I command hundreds, each armed with technology your primitive mind cannot fathom. Staff cannons, death gliders, shock troops numbering in the millions." He gestured casually, and targeting lasers painted SG-1 from the mothership above. "With a single word, I erase you and everyone you care about." Daniel stepped forward despite the danger, his archaeological mind making connections. "You won't. If you wanted us dead, we'd already be dust. You need something from Thor, something you can't take by force." The System Lord's eyes fixed on the archaeologist with grudging respect. "Perceptive, Dr. Jackson. Yes, I need our new friend intact and preferably cooperative. You see, Thor, your power is raw, undirected, but I have access to ancient technology that could amplify your abilities 1,000-fold. Sarcophagi that grant immortality, genetic manipulation that would perfect your already considerable gifts, hand devices that channel thought into devastating force. Everything the Goa'uld touch turns to slavery," Teal'c interjected, his staff weapon never wavering from Tarvek. "He offers you chains decorated with jewels." Thor looked up at the mothership, calculating. He'd fought impossible odds before, frost giants, dark elves, even his own brother when Loki's schemes turned deadly. But this was different. This wasn't about personal glory or defending one realm. The Goa'uld enslaved billions across thousands of worlds, and this Cronis commanded resources that dwarfed even Odin's armies. "You fear me," Thor said suddenly, realization dawning. "That's why you're here personally, why you brought your ship, why you offer partnership instead of simply attacking. You've seen what I can do, and you know I could tear through your Jaffa like parchment, so you come bearing gifts and threats in equal measure." Cronis's facade of civility became unreadable. "I fear nothing, but I respect power when I encounter it. You could be the greatest weapon the Goa'uld have ever wielded, or you could be an irritating insect I crush beneath my heel. The choice is yours," Thor said, his voice dropping to deadly quiet. "No, the choice is yours, false god. You can retreat now while you still draw breath, or you can face the god of thunder in battle and learn what divine wrath truly means." Mjolnir blazed with lightning, illuminating the desert in electric blue light. Above them, the Haytack's weapons charged with answering power.
The standoff held for 3 heartbeats. Then Cronis laughed, a genuine sound of dark amusement that echoed across the desert. "Magnificent," the System Lord said, genuine appreciation in his voice. "I have not encountered such defiance in centuries. Most beings grovel or die when faced with the full might of a System Lord." His eyes dimmed slightly, the glow receding. "Very well, Thor Odinson. You wish to test yourself against the gods of this galaxy? Let me show you what divinity means here." He raised his hand, and a golden ribbon materialized around his palm. The Goa'uld hand device, a weapon that could shatter stone, crush organs, or inflict agony beyond mortal comprehension, began to glow with deadly intent. Energy lanced from Cronis's palm, striking Thor square in the chest. The force should have torn through armor and flesh, reducing the Asgardian prince to a broken corpse. Instead, Thor staggered back 2 steps, his armor smoking but intact. The pain was real. Thor felt it like molten iron poured through his veins, but his godly constitution weathered what would have killed any mortal instantly. "Impressive durability," Cronis noted, preparing another strike. "But let us see how long you last." Thor didn't give him the chance. He hurled Mjolnir with perfect precision, the hammer cutting through the air faster than sound. Cronis raised a personal shield, golden energy flaring to intercept, but Mjolnir was forged to break through magical defenses. The hammer struck the shield and shattered it, the impact sending the System Lord flying backward. SG-1 opened fire simultaneously. P-90 rounds stitched across the Jaffa positions, while Teal'c engaged his former comrades with brutal efficiency. The elite guards returned fire, but they were fighting enemies who'd spent years learning to survive against impossible odds. And they were fighting alongside a god. Thor recalled Mjolnir to his hand and launched skyward, using the hammer's momentum to propel himself toward the Hatak overhead. Jaffa on the ground tracked him with staff weapons, energy bolts crisscrossing the sky, but Thor was already beyond their range. He crashed through the mothership's hull like a meteor. Inside the vessel, Jaffa crew scrambled to respond to the breach. Thor didn't slow down. He moved through corridors designed to intimidation, his hammer reducing ornate walls to rubble. Staff weapons blazed from every direction, but Asgardian armor held against the sustained barrage. A squad of personal guards materialized via ring transporter, blocking his path. Their commander activated a force field, creating a barrier designed to contain the most dangerous prisoners. Thor hit it at full charge. The barrier held for precisely 2 seconds before Mjolnir's enchanted Uru metal tore through technological restraints like cobwebs. The guards barely had time to register shock before lightning filled the corridor, arcing between metal surfaces and overwhelming their armor's limited protection. "All personnel converge on Deck 7, a voice commanded through the ship's communication system. "Intruder must be contained." Thor dropped from the crippled mothership, Mjolnir pulling him into a controlled descent that ended with him cratering the desert floor between Cronis and SG-1. He rose from the impact dust, cape billowing, eyes blazing with lightning. The System Lord stood slowly, his ornate armor scarred and dented. Behind him, his Jaffa wavered, seeing their god bleed for the first time in living memory. "You have made," Cronis said through gritted teeth, "a grievous error." "No," Thor corrected, advancing with Mjolnir raised. "You made the error when you claimed godhood over innocent people, when you enslaved thousands of worlds and demanded worship built on fear. I have fought frost giants in Jotunheim's frozen wastes. I have battled dark elves when they sought to plunge the 9 realms into eternal darkness. I have stood against my own brother when he threatened all I held dear. You are nothing but a parasite in stolen armor, and I am done listening to false gods claim dominion."
Cronis shed pretense like a discarded cloak. The System Lord's eyes blazed with parasitic fury as he activated every piece of Goa'uld technology at his disposal. The hand device flared to life, a personal shield generator hummed into existence around him, and with a gesture, he commanded his remaining forces to converge. Ring transporters activated across the desert. Dozens of platforms materialized, disgorging hundreds of Jaffa warriors. Death gliders screamed overhead, their weapons carving trenches through the sand. The crippled mothership above struggled to bring its remaining weapons to bear, staff cannons swiveling toward the surface. "You wanted to face a god?" Cronis roared. "Then face the full might of the Goa'uld Empire." Thor spun Mjolnir, building momentum as lightning gathered around him. "SG-1, take cover!" The team dove behind the ancient ruins as Thor became the eye of an electrical storm. He slammed Mjolnir into the ground, and the desert itself seemed to scream. Lightning erupted in every direction, not random strikes, but guided bolts that sought out death gliders with unerring precision. Aircraft exploded in mid-air, raining debris across the battlefield. But there were too many. Even Thor's godly stamina had limits, and the Goa'uld had numbers that could drown armies. Staff weapon fire came from every angle, a storm of energy that even Asgardian armor couldn't withstand indefinitely. Thor felt the impacts accumulating, each blast another crack in his defense. A staff cannon beam caught him directly, lifting him off his feet and hurling him through a stone pillar. He crashed hard, tasting blood, his own blood, something that happened rarely enough to shock him. Mjolnir skidded from his grasp, landing meters away in the sand. Cronis stalked forward, hand device glowing with killing intent. Did you truly think one warrior could stand against an empire? I have crushed rebellions spanning star systems. I have buried civilizations beneath ash and bone. You are powerful, Thor Odinson, but you are alone. A staff blast struck the sand near Cronis's feet, then another. The System Lord turned to find Teal'c standing defiant, his weapon trained on his former god. Around the desert, other Jaffa, those who had witnessed Thor's courage, who had heard Teal'c's words about freedom, hesitated in their assault. "He is not alone," Teal'c declared, "and neither are we." The Stargate activated behind them, chevrons locking in rapid sequence. The wormhole stabilized, and through it poured reinforcements, SG teams that Hammond had kept on standby, armed with Goa'uld weapons captured from previous missions. It wasn't an army, but it was enough to shift the tide. More importantly, another transport beam materialized. The small gray form of the Asgard Supreme Commander appeared, flanked by holographic projections that made his lone presence seem like a fleet.
System Lord Cronis, the Asgard Thor's voice carried surprising authority for such a small frame. You are in violation of the Protected Planets Treaty. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Cronis laughed bitterly. You hide behind your treaties, little gray coward, while the galaxy burns. But you cannot protect everyone, and you cannot be everywhere. Perhaps not, the Asgard agreed, but we can be here, now. White beams lanced from orbit, true Asgard warships decloaking in high atmosphere, their weapons far more precise than Goa'uld technology. They didn't fire to kill, but to disable. Ring transporters sparked and died. Death gliders' engines failed mid-flight, forcing emergency landings. The Hatak mothership's failing systems shut down completely, the massive vessel caught in Asgard tractor beams that prevented it from crashing or escaping. Thor hauled himself upright, recalling Mjolnir to his hand. Every muscle screamed protest, but he forced himself forward. He wasn't done, not while Cronis still stood. You wanted a god? Thor's voice was raw but unbowed. Then witness what happens when you anger one. He raised Mjolnir skyward one final time. The storm clouds he'd summoned earlier, now dispersing across the planet's atmosphere, responded to his call. Every drop of moisture, every particle of charged air, every electron dancing between ground and sky answered to the god of thunder. The lightning that descended wasn't a bolt, it was a pillar of pure electrical fury that connected heaven and earth, with Thor as its focus and Cronis as its target. The System Lord's shield held for 3 seconds, then it shattered like glass. The hand device exploded, taking most of Cronis's arm with it. The Goa'uld screamed, a dual-toned shriek of host and parasite, as divine lightning coursed through stolen flesh.
When the light faded, Cronis lay broken in a crater of fused glass. His armor was slag, his body smoking. He wasn't dead. The symbiote's healing kept him clinging to life, but he was utterly, completely defeated. Thor collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. Around him, the battle had stopped. Jaffa warriors stood frozen, staring at their fallen god. Some dropped their weapons, others simply walked away, their faith shattered beyond repair. O'Neill approached cautiously, P-90 still ready. "You okay there, big guy?" "I have felt better," Thor admitted, accepting Carter's offered hand to stand. "But I have also felt worse. This was a good fight." Tarvek, the Jaffa First Prime, approached slowly. He removed his helmet, a gesture of profound significance, and knelt before Thor, not in worship, but in respect. "You have shown us what we forgot," he said quietly, "that gods can be challenged, that tyrants can fall, that freedom is possible." He looked at his fallen master with something like pity. "What would you have us do?" Thor considered, then looked to Teal'c. "That is not my choice to make. This is your people's rebellion, warrior. I merely struck a blow."
The aftermath of battle settled like dust across P3X888. Asgard vessels maintained orbit while their transporters collected Goa'uld technology and detained Jaffa, who chose continued loyalty to the System Lords. Most, however, chose differently. Tarvek led nearly 200 warriors through the Stargate to worlds where the Free Jaffa movement gathered strength, carrying tales of the day a true god stood against a false one. Cronis himself was transported to an Asgard holding facility, his symbiote extracted and imprisoned separately from his host. The System Lord's empire would fracture without his iron grip, creating chaos the Tok'ra and Free Jaffa could exploit. One victory wouldn't end the war, but it shifted the board dramatically. In Stargate Command's infirmary, Thor sat patiently while Dr. Janet Fraser examined him with professional concern, bordering on scientific fascination. His injuries were already healing at a rate that defied conventional medicine, Asgardian physiology knitting itself back together. "You had 3 fractured ribs, second-degree burns across 40% of your body, and what I can only describe as massive electrical trauma to your nervous system," Fraser reported, shaking her head in disbelief. 2 hours ago. Now you're sitting here like you went for a light jog." "I am Asgardian, Doctor," Thor said with a slight smile. "We are difficult to kill permanently." General Hammond entered with SG-1 in tow, their expressions a mixture of relief and residual adrenaline. "Mr. Thor," Hammond began formally, then reconsidered. "Actually, what's the proper way to address a god?" "Thor is sufficient, General. I have never been one for excessive formality." He stood, testing his weight. Everything held. "I take it our victory has complicated your political situation?" "That's putting it mildly," O'Neill interjected. "The Tok'ra are thrilled, the System Lords are in an uproar, and the Asgard are trying to figure out how to classify you in their database. Plus side, you're officially a folk hero to about 6 dozen liberated Jaffa." The small gray Asgard Supreme Commander materialized via transport beam, his large eyes studying Thor with continued fascination. "We have analyzed your biosignature and cross-referenced it with ancient databases. You are indeed from a parallel dimensional branch, what you call the 9 realms. The energy signature that brought you here matches a theoretical phenomenon the ancients called Yggdrasil convergence. Essentially, the cosmic tree you described occasionally pruning itself." "Meaning?" asked Daniel, his academic interest piqued. "Meaning Thor's arrival may not have been entirely accidental," Carter supplied, her tactical mind already working through implications. "If the dimensional barriers are weakening, or if something triggered a convergence..."
Then others might follow, Thor finished grimly, which could be catastrophic or miraculous depending on who crosses over. He looked at the Asgard commander. Can you send me back? The small gray alien's expression, difficult to read on his features, conveyed something like regret. Not yet. The energy required would exceed our current capabilities, and we don't fully understand the mechanism. However, we are working on it. Until then, he gestured to Hammond. I believe General Hammond has a proposal. The general stepped forward, military bearing softened by genuine respect. Thor, you're not a prisoner here. You've more than proven yourself as an ally, but we could use your help. The Goa'uld won't forget what happened today, and neither will their slaves. Word is spreading across the galaxy about a warrior who stood against a system lord and won. That kind of hope, it's more powerful than any weapon we have. You wish me to become a symbol, Thor said, understanding immediately. We wish you to be yourself, Teal'c corrected, a warrior who fights for the freedom of others. The free Jaffa need allies who understand their struggle. Earth needs friends who can stand against the darkness. And you, Thor Odinson, need a worthy cause while you wait for passage home. Thor looked at each of them, these mortals who had faced impossible odds with nothing but courage and ingenuity. They reminded him of the best of Asgard, before politics and pride had complicated everything. They fought not for glory or conquest, but because it was right. In Asgard, we have a saying, Thor said slowly, where there is great need, there must be great heroes. I see that need here, across thousands of worlds suffering under tyranny. He hefted Mjolnir, feeling its familiar weight. And I see heroes standing against that darkness despite overwhelming odds. He extended his hand to Hammond in the Midgardian gesture of alliance. I will stand with you, General, not as a god demanding worship, but as a warrior seeking worthy battle. The Goa'uld claim divinity through fear and lies. Let us show them what true power looks like. Hammond gripped his hand firmly. Welcome to Stargate Command, Thor. Something tells me the galaxy just got a lot more interesting. O'Neill grinned. Oh, this is going to be fun. Please tell me you have more stories about fighting frost giants, because our mission briefings could use some spicing up.
In the weeks that followed, Thor became a fixture at Stargate Command, an anomaly that defied every regulation and protocol, yet somehow fit perfectly among Earth's defenders. He accompanied SG-1 on missions to liberated worlds, his presence alone enough to inspire courage in freed Jaffa and terror in Goa'uld underlords. The Tok'ra welcomed him cautiously, intrigued by a being whose power didn't derive from symbiotic enhancement. Even the normally reserved Asgard found themselves reassessing their understanding of reality's boundaries. The system lords convened emergency councils, debating how to respond to this new variable. Some sought to replicate whatever process created him. Others wanted him destroyed at any cost. A few, the wisest among them, recognized that the age of unchallenged Goa'uld supremacy was ending, and Thor's arrival merely accelerated the inevitable. But Thor himself cared little about galactic politics. He trained with Jaffa warriors who had thrown off their chains, teaching them that strength came not from symbiotes or gods, but from within. He shared stories of Asgard with Daniel, helping the archaeologist understand that mythology and reality often intertwined in unexpected ways. He debated philosophy with Teal'c, finding kinship with another warrior who had chosen honor over blind obedience. And at night, when the base grew quiet, he would stand beneath Earth's stars, different constellations than those visible from his Asgard, yet somehow familiar, and wonder if the Bifrost would ever call him home. Part of him hoped for that day, but another part, the part that had always sought adventure and worthy causes, felt no urgency to leave. The galaxy had new wars to fight, new tyrants to topple, new people to free. The Goa'uld would learn what it meant to face not false gods, but a true warrior of Asgard. And across 1,000 worlds, slaves looked to the stars with renewed hope, whispering the name of the Thunder God, who proved that even the mightiest chains could be broken. Thor's journey through the Stargate had only begun, but already the ripples of his arrival spread across the cosmos. The false gods had ruled for millennia. Their reign was ending, one lightning bolt at a time. May the Force be with you. More stories await.